Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Welcome to today's webinar, Workplace Charging for Nonprofits and Remote Employers. Today, our presenters are from Revision Energy, Plug-in America, and EVNoire, and I will introduce our three speakers in just a minute. Okay, for today's agenda, to give you a little peek, we're going to talk about best workplaces for commuters and our EVAL program and their partnership. I'll introduce each speaker and then turn the time over to them. And then our program will be about workplace charging for nonprofits and remote employers. We love questions, so you'll see that you have the option to ask questions in the Q&A box. Since we have three speakers and we'll have our question session at the end, if a question is just for one speaker, please include their name at the beginning of your question so we know who to direct it to at the end. You also have the option to chat, so say hi to others and feel free to chat as you would like throughout the webinar. And a little bit about Best Workplaces for Commuters. Best Workplaces for Commuters is hosting this webinar today, and we are the only program of its kind with national recognition for organizations, and that includes higher education institutions and sites for providing progressive transportation benefits to their commuters. 2024 was really a record-breaking year for us and for total membership, so it indicates a growing movement. Commuters are asking for transportation benefits, and employers are providing these benefits to have a competitive edge to their peers when attracting and retaining talent. You can find more about how to join Best Workplaces for Commuters at our website, bestworkplaces.org, and that will also be in the chat, and we welcome you to look at Best Workplaces. Also, a little bit about our partner Forth and the EVAL program. You're going to hear a lot about that today during the presentations. And we partnered with Forth over the last several years to promote the EVAL program. Forth's mission is to electrify transportation by bringing people together to create solutions that reduce pollution and barriers to access. And again, you'll learn about the EVAL program today during the presentation. Okay, so we're going to move right into our presentations, but I'm going to give brief bios so you get to know our presenters a little bit better, and then they'll introduce themselves also. First, we have Brandon Smith, and Brandon C.C. Smith is a dynamic leader and passionate about contemporary technology, electrification, and decarbonization. Brandon has worked with urban mobility, vehicle sharing, electric vehicles, electric vehicle infrastructure, and autonomous vehicles for over 8 years. He's been involved with large companies such as General Motors and early stage startups. Brandon is an advocate for equitable EV adoption, and through his work in the electrification and decarbonization industry, he strives to create a future in which all voices are heard so that all may benefit. And then our next speaker will be Mr. Barry Woods, and he is a Senior Director of E-Mobility for Revision Energy. Barry is charged with developing and growing its electric vehicle charging infrastructure division. He offers consumer education, sales, marketing, and business development expertise to assist the customers in making the right decisions when it comes to charging infrastructure and also related energy technology. Revision is a B-certified corporation and 100% employee-owned. That offers design, engineering, and installation expertise for a variety of clean energy technologies. To date, Revision has installed hundreds of level 2 EV chargers. You'll learn what the level 2 EV chargers are today, and many DC fast charging projects throughout New England, resulting from diverse partnerships with ChargePoint, NLX, Greenlots, EVgo, Flow, and Tesla. Barry is also president of the board with Plug-in America, the only independent US-based nonprofit who is the voice for EV drivers. And so you'll meet Barry in just a minute. And then our third speaker is Rosa Mitsumasu Scotti, and she's with Plug-in America. And she's a senior program manager. She manages several programs with local utilities, private companies, and mission-driven organizations. She brings diverse program and project management experience leading strategic communications, partnership development, and implementation efforts. Rosa received a Master of Science in Sustainable Systems from Rochester Institute of Technology, and her graduate work focused on climate change adaptation and clean vehicle technologies. She lives in San Diego, California, but is originally from Lima, Peru, where she was born and raised. So we have three really great diverse speakers, and so I'm going to turn the time now over to you, Brandon.
Well, thank you very much, Julie. I appreciate you, and thank you everyone here today. My name again is Brandon C.C. Smith. I represent EVNoire, and EVNoire is a full-service consultancy within the electric, autonomous, and e-mobility space, as well as multimodal transportation. We're a diverse group of e-mobility professionals, including engineers, subject matter experts in transportation and mobility, as well as mobility and research and data professionals. So we do quite a bit of work in the policy department, helping to shape a lot of our electrification future. So we are here to tell you the story of electric vehicle charging and talk to you a little bit about the programs that we have. If you could please go to the next slide. So we all know that, there's charging at home, electric vehicle charging. You can charge at home or you can charge in the wild. So the third frontier, the next frontier that we really want to tackle is workplace charging. So when you think about people that live in, let's say, multi-unit dwellings, or let's say that you're renting a house and don't necessarily have the ability to install electric charging infrastructure at your home, and maybe you don't live next to a convenient charging infrastructure on your commute to work. Workplace charging could really help bridge that gap for a lot of individuals that are looking to transfer to electrification, but might have some hesitancy because of the charging infrastructure. So today we're going to talk a little bit about workplace charging. You can go to the next slide, please. So some of the benefits, obviously, of EV charging are the obvious, right? The environmental benefits, you can save money on gas. In addition to that, especially for workplaces, you're looking at happier employees. So as we look to electrification as being kind of the wave of the future, it is here, it's coming. Employees are going to start to look towards workplace charging as being a kind of required or amenity or something that's expected, rather than a luxury. Also, companies that lead on sustainability and conservation often hold a reputation of being progressive and smart and community driven. That's something that we all want. Workplace charging also, again, like we said, helps to really bridge that gap and provides the ability for people to have electrification that don't necessarily have that option otherwise. And again, there's the obvious. We have healthier air, reduces barriers to owning EV ownership. And of course, we have just a cleaner future for our children and grandchildren. Next slide, please. So specifically today, I want to talk to you about two programs. The first of these programs is called Charge at Work. And these programs are essentially sister programs. We'll get into the second program in just a second, but this is the Charge at Work program. And it is fully ran by CalSTART, National DOE funded program. If you can please go to the next slide. So again, Charge at Work, Department of Energy funded program, administered by CalSTART. And we're really engaged in getting the American workers, public officials, community leaders tied into workplace charging. So together we can support cleaner air, again, healthier environment, greater local energy independence, which is really good and really big right now, and responsible community stewardship. So specifically, the Charge at Work program is kind of like a concierge. That's how I like to describe the program. So with Charge at Work, we offer a free site assessment. So if you all are familiar, if you know a business or you own a business, you have a utility company, and a lot of times that utility company will provide you a free site assessment to come and establish that baseline of that foundation of where are you currently and where do you need to go to actually implement electric vehicle charging infrastructure at your business or workplace. Some utilities don't offer that, and it may not be accessible to every business. So as part of the Charge at Work program, we offer a free site assessment. So let's say you have multiple work sites. For example, if you're a college campus and you have multiple sites that you want to electrify, we offer the site assessment for multiple sites as well. So that's a really cool aspect of this program. In addition to that, obviously, we offer technical assistance and help. We're like a concierge service. So we want you to, maybe you have no knowledge. Maybe you're a mom and pop shop and you don't know how to get off the ground. We want to help you get off the ground. Maybe you're Best Buy and you have 100 stores and you just need to know how to move to the next step. We want to help you get to from where you are to where you are. to where you want to go. And one of the biggest things that we use to do that is a tool that we call our project builder. It's basically a project management tool with a focus on actually implementing workplace charging. So this will allow you to look at the CapEx costs and the OpEx costs of installing charging, play with the timeline, see what different kind of charging infrastructure you can install. Do I want level 1 charging, level 2 charging? Do I need DC fast charging? Do I want to intermix this with fleet charging and have some fleet charging at night and have some workers charging during the day? So we kind of help walk you through that process, get your game plan into action, get you that site assessment, and then we also try to connect you with resources. So we don't offer direct incentives, like I'm not going to hand you a pot of money, but I can try to connect you with whatever resources in your particular area to help mitigate any kind of cost or barrier of entry to really get you to implement workplace charging. So that's the Charge at Work program. Real simple, kind of a concierge service. We can definitely talk more about it offline because I think it's a really robust program and something that can really help a lot of people. So again, you can find more about this at chargeatwork.org. You can please go to the next slide. And so this is just a little bit more about the project builder. So again, you can play with the installation costs, incentives databases. I have so many screenshots, but for the interest of time, I'll kind of leave you all with this. But as you can see, we provide some robust graphs and charts. So if you need to wrap this all up, bring it to some higher ups, bring it to some other stakeholders within your organization, you can do that all through our project builder tool. Next slide, please. So we want you to electrify your workplace. Again, workplace charging is going to be a huge component of how we transition to electrification in this country and really throughout the world. So you can find out more about this program at chargeatwork.org. Remember that we have the free site assessment and we also have the project builder tool, as well as the other technical assistance and concierge services to be able to help you to get from zero to actual installation. Now, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the sister program on this next slide, please. So this is Electric Vehicle Adoption Leadership, or as we like to call it, EVAL. And the EVAL program is administered by Forth. If you can please switch to your next slide. It's again, Electric Vehicle Adoption Leadership is a certification program that provides technical assistance and recognition to organizations. That includes businesses, governments, that includes, community-based organizations, a variety of different organizations that support adoption in clean transportation. So the EVAL certification indicates the availability of clean transportation options and opportunities for staff, for workers at your workplace. If you can please switch to the next slide. So I'll talk a little bit about the objectives of the EVAL program. Remember, it's Electric Vehicle Adoption Leadership. So this program, our goal is to execute a nationwide workplace charging program consisting of education, just like with the Charge at Work program, outreach and technical assistance, very similar to the Charge at Work program. And we want to enable large-scale increase in workplace charging adoption. So over the next year, our objective is to actually certify 5,000 work sites. So that's not necessarily 5,000 companies. It's a lofty goal either way, but let's say again, that example, if you're a school and you are one organization, but you have 10 work sites on your campus, that's part of that 5,000 that we want to incorporate into our goals there. So we want to certify 5,000 work sites within the next year within the United States, and with the hope of catalyzing 20,000 new charging ports. So if you have a charging station, it might have multiple ports. We want to get 20,000 ports throughout the nation. So we have some pretty lofty goals, but we're really excited about this because again, as electrification is here to stay, getting workplace electrification really up and running will really help to bring equity throughout the entire nation. So let's talk about this certification program. Again, this is a certification program, and let's talk about who is eligible for that on the next slide, please. So employees from all different types of organizations. We work with businesses, we work with governments, we work with community-based organizations, with a variety of different people. As long as your business is not a home office business, or you're not trying to just electrify your fleet, this certification program is for you. Again, both of these programs are about workplace charging for employees. So that is a huge focus of this program. Next slide. But besides that, anybody is eligible for this. I'll give you just a quick example. EVNoire, we are a completely remote company. We have no physical infrastructure. So that means no electric vehicle charging infrastructure at all within our organization, but we were certified bronze, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about the tiers. So it's very easy to get certified as part of this program. You don't have to be a company that has 100 charging stations, for your 10 employees. Everybody can get certified for this program. It's pretty easy. So I'll talk just a little bit about the certification process. So it's real easy. You log onto the website, which is evalcertification.org. You sign up your organization. Who are you? What's your company's name? Your address, the basic information. And then you fill out a quick 15 to 20-minute questionnaire. It's very quick. I filled it out for our organization. Very simple. It asks you questions about, like, do you have charging infrastructure? Do you incentivize charging for your employees? Do you provide monthly public transportation stipends? We're working with a bank in Washington, D.C. that has electric shoe shine machines. And they were actually given a point for that, for their efforts towards decarbonization, for providing that for the employees that choose to take public transportation or to walk in or bike into work. So you take that 15 to 20-minute questionnaire. Our team evaluates you based on points, pretty simple. And based on those points, you receive a certification. And I'll talk a little bit more about the tiers in just a second. And throughout this process, you have access, of course, to the concierge services of the eval program, just like with the Charge at Work program, as well as documents, resources, being able to connect to other things. And again, if you are looking for, actually implementing more charging, we can also connect you through the Charge at Work program to whatever incentives or programs that we can also assist you with. So I'll talk to you a little bit about the tiers of certification on the next slide. For the certification process. So the eval program, again, you're given points after you fill out that questionnaire, and you receive either a bronze, silver, gold, or platinum level certification. Again, bronze is not that difficult to achieve. And it's based upon simple questions that most organizations can answer. With our gold and our platinum certifications, we are actually reaching out to do case studies, adding some marketing components here. So it's a great thing for you as an organization to have this. One, as like marketing, you can put it on your website, you have bragging rights. Look at our efforts towards transportation electrification. You also get some marketing for this as well. But one cool thing that I'd really like to see as this program is developed, that people are actually using the certification for, is to bolster their qualifications for grants or for RFP responses, right? So if you have this certification, this might just give you the leg up over, competitor XYZ, who just doesn't necessarily have that certification. So it's a great way to also bolster your qualifications on grants and RFPs. So let me go back to that example I was talking about again. Let's say you're a university campus and you have multiple organizations, right? Brandon, I don't want to fill out 20 applications for this. So on the next slide, I'll show you that we do actually have an aggregator that will allow you to certify multiple locations all through one easy process. We had a city, I won't name the city, but we had one of the cities that we're working with. They certified about 30 different organizations, 30 different work sites, and they had different tiers of the certification for different work sites. So you might have one work site that's platinum, several that are gold, 3 that are bronze, and 20 that are silver. So there's the ability to certify multiple work sites in an easy format. So let me go to the next slide and let me answer the question that everybody wants to know, right? How much does this thing cost? So let me go back to that Charge at Work program. Everything that I talked about in that Charge at Work program is completely free. Like, I don't have anything to sell you. I like to tell people that it's all funded by the Department of Energy. You don't need to pay me any money for any of this. We want to help you to really kind of generate and show that there's demand for these type of programs within the industry, so we can get more money pumped into this industry by different organizations. Same thing with the eval certification. From now until November 1st, it's completely free. Remember, this program has been going on for about a year, so we've been offering this service for completely free for about a year. In November 1st, there will be a nominal fee. Again, this is not a crazy fee. It's not going to cost you $20,000 or anything like that. But I advise you, if this is something that you're interested in, reach out to myself or my colleagues, and we can definitely get you engaged with this program. Again, it takes you a couple of days to do this, so you can easily get in before November 1st, and it's completely free. So that means that certification, the technical assistance, and everything that's offered is completely free. And remember, you're eligible as a remote-only company. You're eligible as a government entity. You're eligible as a community-based organization or a nonprofit organization, or if you're a mom and pop shop, or if you're Best Buy. So this is open for you. It's free. It has a lot of benefits. So I recommend, if you have any questions, please talk to me about it, and we can definitely get you connected with this. I want to show you just some of the organizations on the next slide that have been, I honestly, I haven't updated this in a couple of months, but this is just even a couple of months ago before the summer. These are all the people that are getting involved. I see Plug in America, so I'll give a little shout out to Rosa there. There's some other organizations that are really cool. We had Harvard University sign on recently. So a lot of organizations are really getting involved with this to show their dedication to transportation electrification. So what are next steps, right? I told you how much it costs. I kind of explained to you about the different programs. Obviously, I like to talk. My colleagues like to talk. We're going to be doing a few of these other kind of webinars. So on 9/5, we have a workplace charging webinar for small businesses that might interest you. 9/12, we're talking about workplace charging for governments. And 9/19, we'll be talking about for transportation management associations. You can also find all of this information on the bestworkplaces.org in their event page. And you can also find more about this program on evalcertification.org. So the two programs again are Charge at Work. That's going to be Charge at Work. That's Charge AT work.org. And then you have eval certification, EVAL certification.org. So these are the two workplace charging programs. Awesome programs, both absolutely free right now. So I'd love to talk to you all more about this offline. Thank you for having me today. And before we go on, we have saved questions to the very end. Right now, I'm actually going to pass off to my colleague, Barry. And this is our information here if you all would like to connect with us. Barry, take it away.
Thanks, Brandon. I'm going to try to talk fast. Appreciate the opportunity to talk about workplace charging. We are certified through the EVAL program, and we are a workplace, but we're also specifically focused on clean energy. So I would just point out that our mission is to make life better by building our just and equitable electric future. And when we go to the next slide, thanks. I'm going to try to provide an overview of, since my raison d'etre these days is to get charging in the ground, given where we are with the need for addressing climate change. I'm going to try to give you sort of our experience here in the Northeast. We're in Maine, New Hampshire, Mass, and some in Vermont a bit. Some of our experience may be unique to the Northeast. So if you have questions, feel free to follow up with me directly by email. I think the first critical thing to think about for workplace charging, and you're going to get some of this obviously from, the programs that Brandon is involved in, the Charge at Work and the eval, but I thought I would just pull the curtain back a little bit and give you some additional thoughts as you are preparing. I think it's really critical to have a committee to think about assessing where your workplace is in terms of the number of vehicles that have plugs and also the number of people who would have plugs if you were to provide it as a resource, and to start thinking about the budget and incentives. Incentives are key now, both federal, state, and utility. We don't know how long a lot of them are going to last, so it's a really good time to be thinking about adding charging to your workplace. And lastly, thinking about workplace charging policies to help kind of govern the behavior and etiquette involved in it. Next slide. As part of the approach, I never know exactly who in the audience has a lot of experience, so I thought I would just give you a real quick overview with the assistance of my four-legged friends, our view of charging. We're going to focus a lot on level 2 charging for workplace, which is the garden hose variety. That's usually a 40 amp type charger, gets cars 20 to 30 miles of range recovery per hour of charge. So for a work day, depending on the range of the distance of the commute, it's more than adequate. Level 1 has its place. That's a regular 120 volt outlet, gives you what you need. DC fast charging can be extremely efficient, a lot of amperage in a short period of time. I don't usually think of that because of the costs for both the underlying 3-phase power and the hardware for workplaces. Although for fleets, certain fleet applications, I think it might have a value. And then lastly, power sharing, which is sort of a nuanced developing approach using the charging technology and the vehicle intelligence to figure out what the battery needs and to allocate the electricity that's a limited supply usually across a number of ports to give everybody what they need. But it may be level 1 at some periods of time and maybe level 2. Last thing in terms of budgeting, obviously the slower the charge, the cheaper the install, the faster the charge, the more expensive. Next slide. So planning about a charging project, I think it's really important to think about how much parking you have, and therefore how many ports can you afford to dedicate for charging. The easier the install, the cheaper the project. That usually means I avoid asphalt and concrete. I like softscape, where you can trench more easily. The closer you can get the power to the parking spaces, the less expensive the project is going to be. We'll talk a little bit about that in more details. Also, the more plugs that you put in, the cheaper the per plug installed cost is going to be. I don't like interspersing plugs across a large area. I like clustering them. And that makes a lot of sense for future expansion. And you need to think about the technology a bit in terms of the access control, like who's going to pay for the power, and how are you going to maintain it? Because chargers break down occasionally, and that can be a huge inconvenience when you're talking about transportation that everybody relies on day to day. And then finally, site design. Things like in the Northeast, snow removal can be an issue, although it is not as big an issue as it once was. Bollards are usually important to prevent bumper strikes, and lighting for safety. Next. So one area that I think people don't think about is, should I just go for a new service with a new electric meter versus tapping into an existing service? And one of the things that we've found is oftentimes it's cheaper to do a new service because you can put it in proximate to where the parking is. A lot of utilities don't charge much for a new single phase service like that level 2 type charging. And existing services, oftentimes they were never designed to address transportation needs. So you might be able to pull 40 amps, you might even be able to pull 80, but you're not going to ultimately have a very large reservoir of power to dedicate for electric vehicle charging. So I think there's a lot to be said for putting in a new service, both in terms of the project cost, and also putting in a new service gives you, oftentimes because it's its own dedicated account for EV charging, it opens up specific utility rates that are available only for EVs, like time of use rates, overnight demand charge reduction rates, those kinds of things. So these are things to think about, irrespective of the size of the workplace. Next. Network versus non-network chargers. A lot of people are really keen on network charging solutions, like this picture of the charge point unit. They allow you to have much more sophisticated power management and keeping track of electricity through dashboards. So energy data collection and access control. You can charge, public. If you've got access to public charging, if you want to provide access to public charging, you can provide a reduced cost to your employees. You can not charge people who are using vehicles in your fleet. Just a lot more flexibility, but more bells and whistles mean more costs in the hardware and in the ongoing networking. Next. The other kind of charging is basic charging, which can have its place. It's basically a plug and play type thing, very reliable, lower cost hardware. You just don't get energy management data. You don't get access control that's very sophisticated to be able to keep track of which drivers are using what resource at what time. And somebody's got to pay for the electricity. There are ways to kind of construct a payment system with basic charging, but in general, it's definitely it's more apt for situations where people are going to give the power away. It also is not helpful if you have fleet or other requirements where you want to monitor stuff and provide reporting and that sort of thing. They both have their places. I tend to think of the non-network basic charging as being a particularly good solution if you're going to do a limited number of ports. Next. Power management is increasingly, I think, a valuable area to think about for new service or even existing service. I'm going to do a little bit of a discussion of Revision's workplace charging in its headquarters in South Portland, Maine. To give you an example of power management, I'll show you what a dashboard might look like. But basically, it's a more nuanced way to allocate a limited electrical resource across a larger number of ports. So, in that sense, it takes advantage of the vehicle's single greatest the electric vehicle's single greatest difference, I think, from combustion engine, which is cars sit on their butts for long periods of time where they're not being used. This allows you to take advantage of those long dwell times and really be intelligent about how you allocate your electricity. So there's a lot to be said, I think, for allowing some type of power management. Next. So Revision in its South Portland branch, as an example, has got 13 ports, and that's actually growing. We're using a product that allows us to do power management. And in fact, in our case, we moved into a facility that had a lot of existing electrical. So we were able to do 7 ports off of one 70 amp breaker, and I think 6 ports off of a 50 amp breaker. And we've been able to use those very effectively because in a lot of situations now, I think in terms of I think about charging in terms of what various driver user groups are going to be able to take advantage of it. And the more you can tap into different user groups, the better. And in this case, we can use charging at night for our fleet, and then it switches off during the day to allow employees to use it for workplace charging. And we've also noticed a huge increase in the number of people who are investing in personal vehicle use of battery electric because we're providing it for free during the day. So you can see we've got right now, 7 plug-in vehicles that are part of our normal day-to-day fleet. And we've got 35. About 2 years ago, I think we had maybe 10. So we're seeing really huge growth. So incentivizing the purchasing of plug-in vehicles is another real benefit, I think, of providing workplace charging. So I think this gives us a chance to also give employees a raise effectively who use the chargers. If we're giving it away, I mean, it saves energy costs $50 to $100 a month, depending on the length of the commute. So network charging using RFID access, limited electrical, addresses high growth of battery electric vehicles, by multiplying the number of ports available. I think it's a really important asset for any workplace, nonprofit or for-profit, to consider. Next. And just to give you an idea of what it looks like, so this is an example of the charging graph over 1 week in February to show in the 2 instances, we get 2 circuits, a 50 amp and a 70 amp, and they're colored differently. I think the blue is the 50 amp and the yellow is the 70 amp. And you can see one of the advantages of a network charger that does power management is you can see the utilization rates during the daily cycle. And so the flat line of the 50 amp, I think, is probably showing overnight charging at 100% use of that resource. And then it gets spikier during the day based on what the employee charging needs are across a large number of ports. February 24th and 25th is probably a weekend, which is why we saw a big drop off. This allows fleet managers to be able to see what the utilization rates look like, and maybe even think in terms of expanding the number of ports as those get exhausted. You can keep track of employee use and actually see how that monetizes as a benefit in terms of the actual kilowatt hours that are being given away. So a lot of interesting data can come out of the dashboard that's available from most network charging. And I think it's a really interesting technology for you to think about in your own personal circumstance. Next slide. A lot of material. Feel free to email me. Appreciate the opportunity to speak today, you guys. And I'm going to introduce Rosa to start her side of the presentation.
Thank you, Barry, for that very thorough presentation on workplace charging. So I'm Rosa Mitsumasu, Scotti from Plugin America. Just a quick slide on Plugin America. Some of you may be familiar with us. We're a nonprofit 501c3 organization, and through education, advocacy, and research, we accelerate the transition to affordable and accessible plug-in electric vehicles. And our mission is to create a transportation future free of fossil fuels. And Plugin America, as Brandon mentioned, earned bronze EVAL certification. And the EVAL certification program is such an interesting program because it's not just about workplace charging, but it encompasses a little bit more than that. And it includes any programs that an organization may be offering specifically for their employees. So sometimes when people are looking at EVAL, they're like, oh, well, so many organizations became remote during the pandemic and stayed remote, that sometimes when the folks see EVAL, they're like, oh, well, we don't really have an office. Well, I'm here to tell you that doesn't necessarily matter, because as I said, it also EVAL encompasses other options. So we don't have an office at Plugin America, so we don't have workplace charging. But after looking at the EVAL certification questions, which we can make available for you guys, we realized that we actually were able to earn points to reach bronze certifications. And a couple of so as Brandon mentioned, there's 5 sections in the certification. And the 2 sections where we really earned a lot of points was, first of all, employee incentives. As employees, we have access to lease or purchase EVs. So that was a great section where we gain points. Another good question was about how are we having conversations. That's section 1, engaging employees. And at Plug in America, we have conversations about transportation internally a lot. And the 5th section, which is about innovating charging programs. And because of our mission, obviously we have a lot of programs to advance EVs and EV charging. So we were able to earn a lot of points there. At first we weren't sure, but just looking at the questions was really helpful. And I will send these questions to you as a follow-up. But just to share a little bit about the process, after looking at the question and realizing that we were able to get certification, I spoke with my director of programs and also my executive directors. So that process was really important to be able to have buy-in from leadership and talk about what is this about? What does this mean for the organization? What do we need to do? And after having that conversation, we were able to proceed. Next slide, please. And of course, the certification process, because EVAL certification is about not just implementation of workplace charging infrastructure, but also it's meant to assist organizations in the implementation of zero emissions transportation. There's a combination of administration, there's a combination with programs. So I basically sat down with my administration director and we had a conversation because she owns a lot of the employee policies. And I had information about programs and we were able to answer all these questions and go on the website and submit our information. And we were really happy to earn EVAL bronze certification. After submission, it was really very quick. The team of Worth, they managed the website, so they communicated with us, they reviewed their information, and after 2 weeks, we were able to get our certification. So I just want to share a reminder that the EVAL program is not just about workplace charging, even though workplace charging is, of course, a very important component of it. If your organization offers other partnerships, maybe discounts to get access to car sharing or to e-bikes, or as I said, EV incentives, your organization may qualify too. And thank you. And I'm going to pass it back to Julie now.
Great. Thank you so much, Rosa. That's really interesting about your application process and that you are completely remote and receive the bronze level. So I think that's really great information. And Brandon and Barry, those were really informative presentations also. And we do have quite a few questions coming in. So I am going to start with the Q&A session. And we do have some names on these, but if any of you would like to also comment after the person I call on does, please, you're welcome to do that. So we're going to start out with a question for Brandon. Brandon, how long does it typically take from call to install to implement an EV charging system through the Charge at Work program? This poster says we run a small nonprofit, so a small system at one work site.
Okay. So thank you for that question, because that's a very relevant question. To answer that, frankly, it depends on a lot of variables. Now, I'm going to take the scenario that you provided me here, though, with kind of a smaller operation there. If you, let's say you're only installing like 2 chargers, like as Barry talked about, maybe you don't need network chargers. Maybe you just kind of need, we call them like dummy chargers or the simple chargers. And let's say that you don't have a lot of trench shoring or like a lot of infrastructure that you have to change at the building, or electrical infrastructure that you have to change. I mean, you can honestly get a charger installed within a week. It really depends. Like you can go to Best Buy and purchase a charger and have an electrician out there within the same day. So it really depends on the program. Now, let me give you the opposite of that scenario, though. Now, let's say you have to do like Barry was saying, you have to dig up some concrete and you have to run new electrical wire and you have to put new conduit that's 100 feet. All of these are going to add into the factor of, you know, how long it takes you. Again, if you're a government entity, you have to go through different processes. So I would say on average, you know, somebody calls and starts working with us, I really doubt that you're doing anything in less than, a month to 2 months, especially if you're, trying to look for incentives or rebates. But then some people take a year, 2 years, depending on, the scope of their project. I won't say that that's common with a smaller operation, kind of like the question you had. So I would say, somewhere within 2 to 6 months is reasonable to kind of assume that you would have charging installed for the scenario that you presented me. And Julie, if you don't mind, can I just go on and tackle the next question?
Sure, go right ahead.
Okay, so I see the next one is do you have any advice on when it makes sense to invest in level 3 system? We have a smaller parking area, so wondering if fewer but faster systems might make sense, right? So two things there, right? Do you have the upfront capital to put in level 3? Because it's a significant cost difference. A level 2 charger, literally, you can go to Best Buy, get a Tesla charger. It's like $500 plus the installation. You can probably do it for less than $1,000. Level 3 is going to be a whole another apparatus that you want to look into. So the upfront cost is going to be a significant factor. And I would say that you probably, being realistic with you, your employees probably don't need level 3 charging. Now, if you're going to mix this with, like, let's say fleet charging, and you have a fleet that's like rotating in and out, or you have a large fleet and you need to charge up a lot of vehicles, that's when I would look into getting level 3 charging, because then the significantly different cost will then kind of balance out with the benefit and the efficacy that you're having there. But let's say that you have like 20 employees, you have a level 3 charger, those employees, let's imagine, that level 3 charger is going to charge their car up in like 30 minutes. So you're going to have to make sure that employee can leave their desk or wherever they are to come back out and move their car. So it becomes a lot of factors. And I can definitely talk to you more about this offline. But my general answer for this is that level 3 charging for a workplace, I would look at if you're also going to use it as mixed use with a fleet, or if for some reason you just want your employees to charge, within 20, 30 minutes and go on about their day. But I think honestly, 90%, probably 95% of the charging apparatus that we deal with in these workplace charging projects are going to be level 2 charging. I think Barry went over it earlier, but if not, just quickly, level 1 is like you take a house plug it into your wall at home. It's going to take like 4 days to charge. Level 2 charging can charge you up in, like 6 to 12 hours, depending on a couple of factors there. Level 3 charging is like a Tesla supercharger that'll get you charged up in like 25 minutes to maybe an hour if you're on a slow day. So to answer that question in the longest form possible, clearly, I would wait on level 3 unless you're going to use mixed use.
Barry, did you have anything to add to that?
Couldn't have said it any better myself. I was going to say for a small, I think level 3 is expensive, very specific applications, usually in the public domain for long distance travel corridors, maybe high density urban applications. I actually think that this is an instance, just to riff on Brandon's thorough response. I think this is an instance where a lot of people are really well intentioned about this and want to put in stuff. And I think keep it simple. I'd keep the cost down. If you've got limited parking, I'd even think about a network charger using existing electrical, a non-network basic charger, that's a 40 amp breaker, and see how that goes. And just keep the cost down and you'll get what you need. Thanks.
Great. Those are really great answers. Let's move over to Rosa. Any tips for getting leadership on board, especially if much of our workforce is remote? So from your example, do you have any tips on that?
Yes, I think that's a great question. I think that the best thing to do is to have a really good understanding of what the certification does for the organization, right? And in many cases, those of us that are participating in EVAL are either having a conversation with the lead subrecipients of the organization that are promoting EVAL, are inviting their leadership to have a conversation. So we can share those brochures that talk about the impact of EVAL on hiring outcomes or staff retention outcomes, on satisfaction among staff. It's proven that staff And I believe Brandon touched on this in Barry too. You're basically subsidizing transportation costs. So to be able to articulate, enabling the organization to articulate these benefits, well, first of all, from the person that is interested in convey those that messaging to leadership, and then say how they're going to use that specifically for their staff goals and outcomes, that can be very beneficial. Also, there's other great benefits, like the value of your property will go up if you can show a certification. That's proven with other certifications as well, like the LEED building certification, which was used as an inspiration for eval. So being able to gather as much information and maybe bring somebody from the eval team to even present to your leadership board, that has been helpful as well. So there are a lot of resources available from the eval team for any employer that is interested. And also the fact that it's being offered for free through October 31st, that's a great motivator right now, because there's going to be a cost associated with that. That starts, I believe, at $600, and then in tiers it may go up. So long story short, use all of the resources that eval provides, and if needed, bring somebody from the eval team to talk to your leadership directly, which is very helpful.
That's great to know, and we'll make sure all of our attendees know how they can reach someone to schedule that presentation, because we know sometimes there may be a little help needed in getting that leadership buy-in. So that's really great to know that you'll give those personal presentations and assistance. Okay, well, let's move on to another question. We'll move into this one for Barry. Do you have any interesting examples where an organization leveraged the data gathered from network stations? So example, marketing, employee morale, or something else?
Yeah, I think it's, I'm trying to understand the question, because it's could be a little broader in scope based on how it's asked. But I think data is always critical in terms of providing feedback. I think, for example, in the fleet context, it gives a company a chance to figure out what they're saving for operating costs. In the case of revision, with the growth of employee usage of the vehicles, I mean, that's certainly part of our institutional organizational mission, is to get people comfortable driving electric. And so I think that's an example of the benefit of having data to show that employees are getting what they need from the existing charging resource. So I don't know. I think that's all I'd say on that, unless there's further clarification.
Okay, yeah, and anytime anyone is welcome to ask questions in the Q&A, and if you needed a little more clarification, please go ahead and type that in for Barry. But great answer. Brandon, let's go back to you. You mentioned marketing. So how does eval promote those program members, those who have received certification? They're also interested in best workplaces for commuters, and if they do install stations, I'd like to get recognition for our efforts to meet our green goals. So can you also address that from an attendee's question?
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. So two things here. One, I'll defer to Julie and the rest of the team at Best Workplaces for Commuters to speak on their behalf. But in terms of the eval program, so one thing that we're actually doing is some case studies. So we're actually kind of launching these now. If you go on the eval website, I forget the exact subsection it is, but we do have some case studies that are up there right now, just kind of talking about like what people have done, and kind of highlighting some of the interesting things. For example, like I was telling you about that, the bank with the electric shoe shine machine. So we're just trying to, promote on like LinkedIn, Facebook, email blasts, all the different channels, our various organizations like web blast and kind of like email newsletters, like anywhere we can kind of promote these different businesses and show them. We're trying to do that as well. So I know we have a lot of presence on LinkedIn, and for those platinum certifications, we're starting to do more of the case studies and just kind of marketing features on LinkedIn and other social media channels.
Right. And I'll answer about best workplaces for commuters. Since EVAL and Forth are partners, if you do want to certify also as become a member of best workplaces for commuters, there is a discount. So you will receive a discount on your best workplaces for commuters membership. And then also when EVAL does implement their membership fee, you'll also get a discount too. So we have a joint partnership with discounts on both of your memberships. But again, that is free. EVAL is free right now. So you want to get in and get certified now. Okay, thank you for that question. That was really great. So it looks like we have time for one more question. And this is for Barry or Rosa. Most of our employees are remote. Do you have any examples of how a company like ours uses charging infrastructure as an award or an incentive, something like that?
Russ, I can talk quick and then defer to you for further comment. I think in this instance, remote is a really interesting situation. I know a lot of people have company cars they go home with. There's technologies out there that employers will actually install at your residence that allows them to pay you for the kilowatt hours that are, attributable to the use of that particular vehicle, and making use of there's federal incentives through 30C that also allows for tax credit, potentially, depending on your location, that will help offset the cost of that from the employer standpoint. And I think anything that you do in a remote context that incentivizes the use of a plugin, if it meets the functional needs for that transportation application, is a really important investment. And again, saves people money and fits the mission of many organizations. Rosa?
Yeah, I don't have anything to that. I think that I would say is that when it comes to incentives, and sometimes I think that you don't want to overcomplicate, and a lot of companies already include incentives for other services, right? Like some people will pay for some people's part of some people's phone bill because they know that they are using their cell phone for work. So there could be just maybe a financial incentive that could be allocated for transportation and in like a monetary amount. So you could also create a partnership, or some charging infrastructure vendors require a membership. You could create a partnership with a member, right? With a vendor and say, hey, there's this much discount for my employees. So yeah, I would say membership-based discounts if you can create a partnership or a monetary incentive for your employees.
Great, thank you both. Before we close out, I'd like to give all three of you just an opportunity to provide any closing comments. If anything you thought of during the Q&A has come up, here is your opportunity to give us some final closing comments.
Sounds good. I guess I'll start off again. Brandon C.C. Smith from EVNoire here, with the workplace charging programs, both Charge at Work and EVAL. Really excited to talk to you guys about this. We'll share all of our information at the end. So if you have any questions about workplace charging, obviously feel free to come to us. And both my organization as well as Plug in America, we are full service in terms of the electrification industry. So if you do find that you have questions outside of workplace charging, maybe it's about your fleet, or it's about education, or it's about partnerships or collaborations, please feel free to reach out to both EVNoire and Plug in America and use us as a resource. Thank you all for your time today.
I would say one couple quick thoughts. Even in Maine, we're seeing workplaces that we electrified that are starting to expand. And I think we're all in the midst of a pretty fast trajectory of adoption. And I wouldn't underestimate the need for workplace charging and thinking in terms of expansion going forward. And it is, as Brandon said, it is a really critical opportunity for many people who might not otherwise have access to residential overnight charging. Your car is sitting there for 6 to 8 hours, during the day. So it's a great opportunity to take advantage of the benefits of driving electric.
Great, thank you. Rosa, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I just wanted to remind folks that in terms of the EVAL certification, it's dual. Like I think that it's a very comprehensive certification because it assists. There's an interesting technical assistance component. There's a lot of organizations that may not be having conversations about zero emissions technologies or zero emissions transportations with their employees, and they're not sure how to implement policies. So that there is this sort of initial need, right? So EVAL offers that, which is great. So when you're looking inwards to the organizationally speaking, it has all these really great resources, webinars, documents, surveys, templates. There's also a list of contractors if you really want to work with a particular type of contractor, like women-owned, and also so that's internal facing, but external facing, EVAL is meant to do what LEED building certification did for the concept of sustainability in the built environment. So a lot of people walk into a building and they see LEED certification, and they know because Green Building Institute implemented this over 20 years ago. So it brought a lot of attention and recognition to the topic itself. And that's what we're hoping to accomplish with EVAL too, that is not only internally for organizations, but organizations will be able to play a really important role, bringing recognition to the importance of workplace charging and clean transportation in general. And this is the time where the foundation is being built for this work. That's why it's being offered for free. That's why we're partnering with great organizations like Best Workplaces for Commuters to really push forward, because you can look at it from a micro point of view, like an organization, but there's really a big picture approach here too of awareness. So really encourage everyone who's participating on EVAL and Charge at Work to join us, because there's also like the big momentum that we're working on right now. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Well, thank you to all three of you. Those were great presentations. And up next, please, you're welcome to and invited to attend our September 5th Workplace Charging at Small Businesses. And again, I thank our presenters. If you could please take the evaluation. Christine's going to put that into the chat. She probably already did. And we'd love to hear your feedback and topics for future webinars. But please look at our remaining webinars, and you're welcome to attend all of them or one of them if there is one that piques your interest more. So again, thank you, Rosa, Brandon, and Barry. Those were really excellent. I learned something, and we really appreciate the time that you took out of your day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.